Oh, God. Thank you for your...
Oh, yeah, of course.
I'm old and crabby. Oh, you went
Before you got sick. Yeah.
terrible pain in my left leg, no mobility, and no strength.
Pain does things to you.
I did an MRI, it's not muscular,
I
it's
understand.
no tendons, stuff like that, and waiting to hear on the
Just
spinal
have to
line,
remember
they
that,
think it
you
may be
know,
nervous.
say it's not me, it's grouchy, it's the pain that's grouchy.
You go in another room, you can't follow you that.
I am noticing a little
You go
bit.
downstairs with him.
Yeah, he's had
He doesn't even go in the kitchen. And you comment to your mom.
I'm John. Yes, how are you? Yeah, I know.
The one that
Eventually, sir, we all belong to
The exercise.
That looks like a one that we used.
So you made it.
You made it too. In solidarity.
I was more concerned about you.
Make it happen every month.
She had to come from Northville.
Ow. 94 is fun, isn't it?
So gross. So gross.
Or 75, which one?
94.
In the rain, yeah, it don't work.
No, it's just traffic, you know.
Before I call the meeting to order, please let's make sure that we are speaking very close to the microphone. I know there were some significant audio issues with the city council meeting, so we don't want any hateful comments on Facebook about our audio issues, please. I'd like to call the Planning Commission meeting for the city of East Point, April 4th, Thursday, 7 p.m. Secretary, please call the roll.
Mr. Stokes?
Here.
Mr. Lubeck?
Here.
Ms. Naylor? Here. Ms. Julinski here. Chairman DeHaan?
Here. Moving on to item 2, approval of the agenda. Can I get a motion?
I'll make the motion that we approve the agenda for tonight.
We have motion. Do we have support?
Second.
We have motion and support. Secretary, please call the roll.
Mr. Lubeck?
Yes.
Ms. Naylor?
Yes.
Mr. Stokes?
Yes.
Ms. Julinski, yes. Chairman DeHaan?
Yes, we have no sound.
I heard mine.
There we go. Now,
Hello?
all right.
Hello?
Okay, there we go.
Hello? Hello?
All right.
Okay, crazy.
So I believe that we've passed the approval of the agenda. Moving on to the first hearing of the public, if anybody wishes to be heard, you have 3 minutes. If you wish to speak on the public hearing, we ask that you hold those comments for that time. Otherwise, the floor is yours, and you have 3 minutes. Does anybody wish to be heard? Anyone wish to be heard? If you would please write your name there should be a piece of paper up there, if you would write it down.
No paper, no paper. Pen, but no paper. I just came because I had the appointment. I filed with the city to, I guess, get an extension on the property that I purchased that the previous guy had who left the building and didn't do any work to it for a period of time.
Okay, I actually think that would be in the public hearing.
Okay, so then I would wait. Okay,
Yeah.
so that's, my apologies.
No problem.
First,
It's not the public hearing.
Oh, I'm terribly sorry. You are
But it is an
correct.
agenda item.
You are correct. Feel free. My apologies.
Mr. Chair, if the speaker wishes just to address his concerns during the agenda, he's welcome to do that as well.
Okay.
yeah, so basically my concern is that I just want to be able to get an approval from you guys about this building so I can proceed to kind of finish it. He left it, it's 20770 Kelly Road, which is the building that sits in the Foot Locker parking lot on Kelly Road. I hired a builder and designer. We had a confusion about him pulling a building permit or not, so he started actually some work on the building. We got a notice from the city, and we looked through all the plans that were approved at the time, but there was a supposed new city ordinance that the building doesn't meet because he didn't actually finish the cosmetic work of the building, but the actual structure is finished. So my intent was to purchase the building, refinish it, make it, like a really, really nice looking building, and then put my business that I own into the building. And it's a retail clothing store. So I guess I'm here to see if we can get that extended and maybe get back to work, or what the protocol would be for me to start to finish the work so I can get the structure completed and the business opened.
Okay, thank you. We'll discuss that deeper when we go into new business.
Okay.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to be heard? Anyone else wish to be heard? Seeing none, we will close the first hearing in the public, and we will move on to the approval of the minutes for the meeting of March 7th, 2024. Can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion that the minutes of the March 7, 2024 meeting be approved.
We have motion, do we have support? We have motion and support. Secretary, please call the roll.
Mr. Lubak,
Yes.
Mr. Stokes,
Yes.
Ms. Naylor,
Yes.
Ms. Julinski abstained, and Chairman DeHunt.
Yes. Can we get a motion to open the first public hearing, or the public hearing, presentation, the zoning ordinance updates, and considering feedback on the updates?
So moved.
We have motion, do we have support?
I support.
We have motion and support. Secretary, please call the roll.
Sorry. Mr. Lubak,
Yes.
Ms. Naylor,
Yes.
Mr. Stokes,
Yes.
Ms. Julinski, yes. Chairman DeHunt.
Yes. So at this point, if anybody has any comments about the zoning ordinance changes, the floor is yours. Does anybody wish to be heard on the zoning ordinance changes or updates? Anyone else?
I just had a question, more so, going through this, where we're putting in the language for managing stormwater. And then there were a few items, I'm sorry, I thought I could have my page open to it, where we removed some things that were required for in front of a building, and I just wanted to make sure I got clarity. I do apologize, I had it open, but my computer decided to shut down. You can come back to me if you want.
All right, yeah, well, we can have Mara dive into that when we get to that.
Okay, go ahead.
All right?
Is this still relevant to what I was saying, or is there something? This is my first hearing, so I'm kind of like, I want to make sure I get everything appropriately, so you guys have the information that I'm looking to give you, so I can get the answer from you guys.
Would these updates affect this gentleman, or are these different updates from what we need to consider with him?
So, Chair,
Yes, please.
we are on the highlighted item on the agenda, which is to consider zoning ordinance updates. So we're in the public hearing for the zoning ordinance updates. If you want me to present the zoning ordinance updates, I can, or we can wait till new business.
All right, well, if there's nothing in the zoning ordinance updates that would be applicable to this gentleman's thing, then we should just go ahead and close the public hearing and then move into new business. Would that be a fair assumption?
That sounds good.
Okay. So, seeing no comments, can I get a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
We have a motion, do we have support?
Support.
We have motion and support. Secretary, please call the roll.
Mr. Lubak,
Yes.
Mr. Stokes,
Yes.
Ms. Naylor,
Yes.
Ms. Julinski, yes. Chairman DeHunt.
Yes. Moving on to item A, consider a motion requesting site plan extension for 2770 Kelly Road. Ms. Brashevsky.
Okay, great, thanks. So this is the item where we discussed your project, and so I'll do a presentation, and then we can ask you to come to the podium and provide any other additional feedback, and then the planning commission will deliberate. Okay, thank you, and welcome. Sure, thank you for coming. So, within your packet and on the screen, we have the applicant's petition to extend their site plan. So the project is located at 8 Mile and Kelly. And I'll scroll down so you can understand what the project site is. This is the building in question. So the applicant for 2007 Kelly Road seeks a site plan extension for their site plan, which was conditionally approved January 19th, 2020 by the Planning Commission. So 4 years ago, you've seen the site plan, you might remember it. Per the East Point zoning ordinance section 1207, which I have here, procedures after site plan approval, the site plan expires if a building permit has not been obtained and construction commenced within 12 months of the approval date. So this is the technical language cut and paste from the zoning ordinance. The applicant pulled a building permit in September 2020. So their site plan was approved January 2020. They pulled a building permit September 2020. Construction started during the month of October. The building permit expired in December 2021 due to inactivity, and a building was built, but not according to the site plan that was shown to Planning Commission in January 2020. And the summary of how that site plan or the project does not meet the January 2022 or 2020 site plan is within this memo, and I can just go over that in a second. So the applicant today seeks a site plan extension, and Planning Commission is allowed to grant a one-time extension of up to 12 months if the approved site plan continues to adequately represent conditions on and surrounding the site, and if the site plan conforms to the standards of city regulations in effect at the time of the applicant's request for an extension. So this is copied and pasted from the language, and as we know, from the zoning ordinance, as we know, the applicant submitted a request for extension February 2024. The January 2020 site plan is no longer in compliance with the 2023 zoning ordinance update. And I can show you a summary of how the project does not meet the 2023 zoning ordinance, if you wish as well. Both are presented within the memo.
So before we go into your recommendation, I'd like to ask, so this site plan was done to a completely different individual? Is that, when did you buy this building,
I
sir?
just purchased the building, and I believe we closed at the end of the year.
Why don't you take the podium, sir?
My apologies.
I believe we closed at the end of 2023, the fourth quarter of 2023 of last year is when this is the previous owner's site plan.
So you've owned the building for less than 6 months?
Correct.
Okay.
Maybe 4 months.
Okay. All right, I'm sorry to interrupt, Ms. Brochowski, go ahead.
Okay. Well, I'm just showing you, I can get into the recommendation if you wish, but this is the site plan review and how it does not meet the site plan. This is the review of how the project today does not meet the requirements from the 2020 site plan. And I have a summary of it, but you can just see this picture here. So the facade material is different, there's no parapet on the roof, the windows are a little different. This is just one facade.
Can you get a current visual of the back side of the building where the scaffolding is? Because it looks like what we were looking for was being started on the back side of the building.
It was started, the front and the side that's basically on the opposite side of that building is, I don't know what the name of the street is.
Yeah, 17 hasn't been there for a while.
Where'd it go?
All right, so that's not an accurate image because currently there's scaffolding behind the building.
Well, on that side, correct, there is,
It
yes.
looks like there is some sort of material.
There is, correct. I don't know, unfortunately, there's not the front, but if you look at the front of the building, because we had a mix-up when they hired the guy, usually, in all my building situations, the builder usually pulls the permit, starts the work, sends me the bill, and gets working. But on his, which I look back, because he told me that he put on the paperwork, not pulling the building permit, but of course, I kind of overlooked that, so that's on me. So we started it, and the front of the building does not look the way that looks now. We actually put a nice frontage on there, it looks good, and then the city stopped us from doing the work, so we haven't done anything else since then. But I kind of wanted to, make it look really nice, and I saw the plans that he had like the stone and the elevation. To me, that's kind of like it's a few-year-old look. I want to kind of to make it like a nice, real, clean, neat-looking building. I actually do have a picture of what it looks like currently, if you guys would like to see that, or if there's a way for us to put it up there, just so you guys can view it, just so you can kind of see what the premise of what I was my vision was for this building, so you could see that.
Can you share that with Ms. Brushevsky?
I can email it to you, yeah.
Yeah, why don't, Chair?
Please.
Could, you guys want to continue the conversation? Sure. Okay.
If you could come and visit our community economic development manager, Mr. McCain,
Okay.
coordinate that. All right, so while we are continuing the conversation, we're happy to hear that we want to create a really nice, clean, neat building. We just want to see that in a site plan that reflects the regulations in the current ordinance. So I think that there's a partnership that should be had here. I think we both want the same thing. Yeah, but I think it's up to the planning commission to decide, but my recommendation, the planning department recommendation, is to deny the site plan extension because the 2022 or 2020 site plan, like the applicant agrees, does not meet the 2023 ordinance standards or is not in current with today's design aesthetic. And the project experienced a 4-year time lapse, so it is now outdated and does not reflect city policy, as I had mentioned. Furthermore, the revocation clause in section 1207E states that we are allowed to revoke the site plan if the site plan project does not progress in a manner consistent with the approved site plan. So we recommend the revocation of the 2020 plan and resubmission of a new site plan with new ordinance standards, or updated ordinance standards.
Ms. Brazaszewski, just so I'm perfectly clear on this, the original person who came and got site plan approval proceeded with construction that in no way met the conditions of his approved site plan. Is that correct?
Chair. For this review, no, they did not. If we look at the site plan, if you guys want to take a tour of the site plan, we can see some instances of implementation, like the alley side elevation drawing is similar in concept to
So would it be...
facade materials are different and the roof is different.
So would it be safe to say he had an approved site plan and then went and did whatever he wanted?
I think, wasn't the whole thing suspended because didn't he try and go for a marijuana license?
Chair, I don't have this information. I can only talk about the facts that I have today.
I was under the impression that that was a building that was up for consideration for, was that, Mr. Albright, was that the original owner?
Mr. Chair, I'm not sure if this particular site was one of the proposed locations for medical marijuana dispensary. I know there's one across the street on the corner that was awarded, so but I'm not familiar about this particular site.
So with the site plan, what he did is, he according to my guys, he was following it, he just didn't complete it. So he got, you have to do it in the order of, building the building, get everything put together and up, but he didn't finish the cosmetic work of the actual building by adding the elevation or all that, which can be added onto the building. I only wanted to, I sent a picture to him so you'll be able to see it, but I think what I put there so far is going to be, a really, really phenomenal looking building in the city of East Point. I've driven around, I've looked at a lot of buildings, and just the look of this one, I think, it does enhance, the city and the building itself. and also, like I said, I didn't previously own this building, and my business is going to be a men's clothing store, so I'd have to read what the new ordinance is, but if we have to add windows or anything, it takes away from the space of allowing me to hang product on the wall space, which is generally how we display a lot of our products inside of the stores.
Chairman, ask a question?
Please.
And first of all, did you get your answer? Because it seemed to me that it was just a project started. I remember us talking about it being left as an eyesore, what's happening on Kelly.
Yes.
So first of all, we want to say
It's been a
thank
thorn in
you.
my side.
Yeah, we want to say thank you for picking it up to close it, get it across the finish line, first and foremost. But I had a question to you, Mara. So if you're recommending a new site plan and starting the process all over to be in compliance with what the new laws are, how much time would be lost in the process of him submitting and him being able to get permitted? I'm just curious because we've had a long time waiting for this building to see any traction.
And I'm also paying a payment on this building, which is, it's already been 4 months, and the longer I'm paying, the harder it is for me to come across and get this project done in a reasonable amount of time, too. I'm trying to, put a building there and get my business up and running in the city, and as well as give, I take pride in my projects as well, so I'm not gonna put anything just, that doesn't look good there. I think that it was just up there. I thought the building looked pretty good, and I guess you guys will be the judge of what we've done so far, just to see, how far we come, and just the way it looked in the previous picture. And it actually looks better in person than it does on the picture.
So it's what we need, a site plan instead of an extension. Extension would be the old plans, which no longer apply to what we're doing. So we're saying we need a new site plan? Is that the recommendation? Okay. And my question was, for him to do an application for a site plan, he has to go back, we have to go all the way to next month?
Sure.
For approval?
Go ahead.
Just to make sure I understand the timeline of the process.
Okay, so we do offer administrative review of site plans. That's more for projects that are minor in nature. We can, maybe the city attorney can weigh in to see if we could grant administrative approval of this site plan. But if the applicant already has the design, which it seems to have, and I also want to commend you, this is definitely an improvement, thank you. I'd like to see the other facades as well, because we are, just so the planning commission knows, that this is the corner of 8 Mile and Kelly, so this is a gateway into the city, and there's a lot of thought of design in the Kelly Road corridor with the Complete Streets program. So we want to make sure that we're having quality design as we pursue this corridor and treating it as a great economic development and commercial corridor destination. So moving on to your question, Commissioner Naylor, if the applicant is to go to the Planning Commission for a Planning Commission site plan review, they could get on the May calendar if they submit within, we've already passed the deadline, but since there's no public hearing request, the planning department can work with you, and if you submit by the end of next week your site plan, we can put it on the agenda.
I would have to see if the architect or whoever I call could whip that up in that amount of time as well, too. So the building that we saw, it'll look exactly like that on all sides of the building. It'll have like the limestone look on all the sides, with the gray bottom continuous throughout the whole entire building is what we have, is what my original plan for that building was. I could go back to the architect, but again, we're in I'm kind of like in a time crunch. I was trying to be open as soon as possible to catch up with, tax season and all the other things that are coming along. So I don't want to waste I want to be able to use the time wisely and try to get open in the fastest possible way while still providing the city with a phenomenal looking property.
So my next question to the consultants again, looking at where he is in the middle of this, your recommendations to start for next month, we have to do something special to get him on the calendar. You said something about administrative. Would administrative allow for just a facade if the rest of the project was already site plan approved? Is the facade we're concerned with? Could that be handled administratively? Sure. Question. Is that a question that could happen administrative? Because right now this is the facade that's on the table. We've been looking at this a long time.
I guess the real question here being asked is how significantly different are the new requirements from the old requirements? And are they going to need planning commission approval?
That's,
Or
that's,
is it
yeah,
just differences that could be administrative?
that's the question, yes, thank you.
This response would take a minute to look at the zoning ordinance, and if you'd like to assist the attorney, I'd be interested in your feedback. But I also have the site plan review in front of you to understand what elements are required for the project to be compatible with the current zoning ordinance regulations.
Okay.
So where do you want me to present?
Go.
Yeah, I think if you could tell us, that would be good. Go ahead.
Thank you. Mara, is this something that you believe, based on just a cursory review, that an architect working diligently could have the application in by the end of next week?
Yeah, we could even take it on Monday, the 15th.
Yeah.
So let's just look, we have time, let's look at it during this meeting. I'm just going to need to take a tour to the site plan.
So here's my thought process on this whole thing. Had you been the original owner, I would have peppered you with a whole bunch of questions you would not have been very happy with me about. But since you're a new owner, you have a little bit more of my leeway to decide.
I appreciate it.
But I'm only one vote. It seems to me that the malefactor in this whole thing was the prior owner. And I would have no problem personally, and again, I'm just one voice, I would have no problem with this being handled administratively so long as we are following the zoning ordinances and we are making sure that it is quite attractive. I mean, for that matter, I kind of leaned into Commissioner Naylor and thought, oh my, wouldn't that be a nice place to put a mural along Kelly Road to go with the Complete Streets program? So, but that's just my stance, but I will defer to the legal eagles down there.
Okay, Chair, so in front of us today on screen, we have the site plan chapter of the zoning ordinance. So all projects require planning commission site plan unless otherwise specified. So administrative sketch plans involve minor new construction and changes in site exterior. Additionally, sketch plans are used for projects featuring new construction forward to. Okay. So let's see. Sketch plans, renovation, addition of up to 1 or 2, change in building height, projects that involve minor modifications and do not require special land use. Minor modifications are defined as a change to an existing building that is not an increase in the footprint. So we're not increasing the footprint. Exterior site improvements, let's look here. Change in building height, infrastructure, paving, landscapes, non-residential architectural design, or non-structural architecture design, changes to non-residential uses. Okay, so that would be us. But I do want to point out, so we could go to, if the city attorney agrees, administrative review. But I do want to point out that this design does not meet the form-based code standards that we have in place.
What type of code is that?
The form-based code standards that we have in place for the Kelly Road corridor. So go to our zoning ordinance, schedule regulations, building form and design standards, and then go to mixed use, neighborhood mixed use district, and we see that we need a minimum facade height of 16 feet. I don't know what your facade height is, but I don't think it's 16 feet. Let me look, I have it in my, Okay, I'm just gonna go to, okay, so this is the compatibility of the project against the current standards. Schedule regulations, we need maximum impervious lot coverage. Okay, so that's easy for the architect just to find, it's in CAD. Understand what the lot coverage is of the site. Then architecture and building design. So the project facade height and ground floor height are too short. The project does not have adequate primary entrance or architectural features. as you saw the blank wall along Kelly. The project violates the blank wall transparency and exterior building materials provisions. So the building materials are, will propose in the site, well, current today, I guess, are CMU block, and that is not allowed. It is only allowed as an accessory material in the light industrial district.
But just, I don't mean to interrupt, but this gentleman prior to the city stopping him was putting a new facade over the brick.
Right, yeah, I was trying to, excuse me for speaking, I didn't know if you were done, my apologies. I was just trying to get the building finished or whatever, and everything that's in there is because nobody's done the work. So I'm trying to do the work so we can kind of put the facade on the building, get the block out, put the aesthetics back on the building so the building looks great. And the whole building will look exactly the same as the front of the building all the way around the building. And I also do believe there may be some lighting actually on each side of the building as well. As far as like the height of the building, I think like having the one section higher than the rest kind of gives it a dated look to what's kind of going on in the new construction of buildings that are up and coming.
Mr. Albright?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mara, what would the applicant need to do as far as changes to the existing site plan to adequately represent current conditions on the surrounding the site and also to conform with the standards of city regulations in effect currently? What would he need to do?
Thank you, City Attorney, Chair. Everything listed on this memo
Okay.
that I was explaining.
Okay, so
This memo is an analysis of how the project today does not meet zoning ordinance standards today. So everything on this memo is what the applicant needs to provide in their site plan in order for the project to qualify with the zoning ordinance regulations.
And sir, is that something that you're able to do?
I mean, I can give it to an architect. So the reason for get the extension was to get the extension on something that was already approved, and the reason it's not looking so good now is because it's not finished. So everything that's missing on there, I'm going to complete and get it rolling. So I understand that the building is incomplete, but we haven't done any work since the stop work order. So once we get back to work, we're going to refinish the side of the building and it'll look like a completely brand-new building once I get done. In the interior, we're also going to take time and, redo the flooring in there, polish it. It's going to look really nice, and it's going to be good because I'm sitting next to a Foot Locker, and my business actually meshes really well with the Foot Locker customers. So having both of us there is going to be a nice little, area where people are coming and going, and, in that area. My business also kind of correlates with like the Jimmy Jazz that's there, the Snipes, so all of us will be just kind of feeding off each other, and I think for the building that we're going to put there, it's going to look like it belongs, like in the vicinity with all the corporate stores as well too.
Chair, again, is this something that can be done administratively with him presenting these list of things, or do we need a full site plan with council? I think that's the question that we all agree there's some changes need to be made. It's just, can it be done administratively?
Sure. Okay, so I hear you. We appreciate you coming in and doing business in East Point and improving the building, 100%. I am just portraying the existing conditions, but we know that you're changing the existing conditions. So thank you. I think we can move past that point. And what we're asking today is for us to see a vision or illustration of your vision. So a site plan illustration of your vision. And we need to know that that complies with the existing ordinance, because the 2020 ordinance is outdated and it's too late to ask for an extension because the 2020 ordinance no longer follows current policy. Regarding your question, Commissioner Naylor, on if the applicant do it, I see that there's not, well, it depends. So as I'm reading this report, this review of you, there's the project facade height and ground floor height don't meet the regulations. So is that something that the applicant can change? Commissioner Naylor, maybe you can weigh in on this with your knowledge of construction. I do see that an administrative site plan can review changes in site exterior, but I guess it's up to this body to understand if that change in height is relevant with site exterior. I could see a case for it to be so. And again, the project also violates the transparency requirements, so there's not enough windows. So these are all things for parking, screening, exterior lighting, those are all easier fixes. But yeah, the architecture and building design are the big ones for the planning commission to decide. And we only offer waivers in materials. We don't offer waivers for transparency or building height. So if you're interested in offering waivers in transparency and building height, today would be a good day to decide, because we're looking at the zoning ordinance in the next order of business.
Shelburne.
Mara, I know you had said that city administration could accept a filing the following Monday. Is that the absolute latest, or would there be a little bit of wiggle room just to accept it maybe further into the following week as well?
City attorney, the deadline is passed for the May meeting, and that is the wiggle room and flexibility that we are willing to offer.
To Monday?
Yes.
Okay. And do you think it is conceivable, just with your expertise in the realm of architecture and architects, that they could put something together between now and the deadline of 2 Mondays from now?
Sure. It depends on if the applicant's already in correspondence with a professional.
I have spoken to one. My concern is going to be about the new ordinance about I guess you said the window. So, I didn't really plan on blowing out blocks and architecturally putting in windows in. I would ask that we potentially be grandfathered in, because even though he didn't complete the building, he completed the actual building, he just didn't complete the cosmetics of the building. So the structure was actually built to code at the time, and because he didn't finish it, had he finished it, it would have been okay. You guys wouldn't have made him blow it out and put the windows and everything in. So I would ask if I could just leave it the way it is and get the facade going and have the building look really nice. Like I said, when I bought this property, I was unaware that I could potentially have to blow half the wall out and put windows in, which limits my ability to do what I'm trying to do on the interior of the building. Now, as you can see by the front of the building, I take a lot of pride and I put a lot of effort into the properties that I have and that I own, and I want it to look good, and I'm ready to open up and do business in the city of East Point. And if there's a way that we can work together to get this completed and up and moving, I'd really like to be able to figure out how we can get this going, and I want to give you guys something nice as well too. Like I said, I take pride in what I own, and it's going to be a really nice building once it's all completed and done. And you'll see by the front that, my guys are great. They come in, they do the work. And had we been allowed to do it, we would have already, we would have already completed this 2 months ago. The inside would have been done, and now that we're waiting on this, I think this is more of a facade issue. My next question would be, what about the interior of the building? Am I allowed to, it needs drywall, am I allowed to drywall it? Am I allowed to polish the concrete floor? Am I allowed to do interior work, since we're only talking about the outside of the building?
Do you want to answer the question?
Because we were asked tonight about extending the site plan, so I kind of was reviewing this in that limelight. So since we know extension is not even really an option, it appears to move this project forward. It was built and abandoned, and someone picked it up. And the expense of some of the changes in the zoning since that time, are you saying a waiver with like the lighting on the side? Because the side is already structured, although the project was abandoned. Would we really ask someone to then remodel the whole building? Or would a waiver suffice to say he could complete the one side with the exterior facade, that if we waive the glazing, could administratively, or even meeting the timeline with the 2 Mondays, he could move this project forward? Is that clear?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, thanks, Commissioner. So right now, we do not have an avenue for Planning Commission or anyone to waive the height or transparency requirements. We only have the authority to waive, Planning Commission has the authority to waive materials in terms of the site exterior, the building facade exterior. Like you can waive parking and landscaping and other things like that. So if you wanted to build a provision like that, well, today is the day that we talk about the ordinance. However, I do want to circle back like you also did, Commissioner Naylor. We do need a site plan on file. So we currently do not have a site plan. We have a recommendation to revoke the 2020 site plan so that there's no other conflict or confusion about this site plan. And we do need an active site plan on file in order for the applicant to move forward with building permits. And until then, the applicant can't move forward with interior work because the applicant would need building permits in order to perform that type of work.
So I couldn't get a building permit for the interior, even though nothing in the interior is in question today? It's the outside that's in question, not the inside?
Correct.
The site plan has expired, and an active site plan is required
Before we have the building permit.
For the inside.
Understood.
So you're just kind of in this situation. So I'm just trying to, and it's not something trying to make excuses, we really, like I say, we're just trying to find out a solution to this. Because I'm thinking if we went and bought an existing building today, and we have site plans, would someone have to go and do all this renovation? Because he still is a new owner who bought a building, so if I bought a building, I have to open it up for the windows. I'm just asking if someone bought a building that's already established today, they would have to comply with opening windows.
Sure. So all the other buildings have site plans. So if there's an existing site plan on file, then no, they don't need to comply with the zoning ordinance standards because that would be considered a taking, and we don't do that here. We also did this great thing with the new zoning ordinance update and allow for property owners to expand their non-conforming use, business, or building structure if it's not allowed in the zoning ordinance. So you remember the Class A non-conforming use designation or building designation? So we might be able to pursue a route like that where we get a site plan submitted. And City Attorney, I'd like to see your thoughts on this, or hear your thoughts on this, but we need a site plan. And if the site plan doesn't meet the standards of the ordinance, then perhaps the applicant could submit for a Class A non-conforming use or structure designation.
I'm just trying to find out what we need to do. That makes sense, since we did add that clause when we were doing the zoning, redoing it, to make sure that some buildings are gonna fall into those gray areas. If we brought in new business owners on existing businesses, so we had that clause in there.
So maybe we do
So
need a
this
clause
is-
like that.
So do we have it, or that A and B doesn't cover this situation? We need to consider that.
Chair, Commissioner Naylor, the Class A non-conforming use and structure designation requires a planning commission meeting and a public hearing.
Okay.
So
That doesn't
that would be in June, because we need to notice the public, no matter how quickly we act. So your question about the avenue and some flexibility for the gray areas, no, we don't have that as immediate as we want in the zoning ordinance today.
Thank you.
So if I'm hearing you, the long and the short of it is, you want a site plan. That's it. Okay.
That's fine. I mean, I can get a site plan. I don't know, the site plan will be pretty much what we've already started there. The elevation is my question, would be what we can do about the elevation and the window. Like we discussed, going in and blowing out a window of a structure that met a criteria at one point, but because we didn't cosmetically finish, to change it and go out and blow out all the windows, I actually technically don't even need the window on the side because I need more interior wall space. So if we have to put another window, that's just going to limit even more product that we can hang on the wall and put in the store as well. You know, like I've stated, I'm going to try to get the site plan. If that's what's required, then, you know, like I said, I want to work together with you guys and get this developed and done and open as fast as possible. I'll talk to the architect. I'll see what we need to do to get a site plan drawn up of what we plan on doing and what I plan on doing so we can get this thing rolling. But as I've stated, I don't want to, it's very costly for me right now to just hold this building month after month after month without, and I know that's really not your issue or your problem per se, but the faster I can get open, the better it's going to be for me and for the city, because like you guys have said, this building has been an eyesore for a long time, and you know, every day I was driving by this building for a while, and I said, man, one day I'd like to get that. And somehow, you know, I ended up getting it, and I want to put something really, really special and nice there. I mean, like I said, if you've driven by it, it looks better in person than it does in the picture.
original gentleman said he was gonna put $1 million into this building, and I remember being extremely excited, thinking this was gonna be a great project.
I mean, it's gonna, I mean, you guys already know what I paid for it, and the cost alone, it's gonna be close to that, I would say, pretty much. I mean, you know, I paid,
Can I address the applicant? Sir, did you and I speak back in February on the phone?
we may have, yes.
There was two people on the phone, and I thought I spoke.
It was an architect.
The architect, so I spoke with both you and the architect, were both on the line?
Yes.
Is that the architect that's going to be working?
Well, he advised me to kind of go back, and I spoke to the guy, the original architect that did this guy's work, because we had the planning thing, so I called him up, and he said, my architect said, you might be able to call him, and he might be able to adjust it for less, and whatever the city might need to adjust it that way. I can speak to my guy and see how long it's going to take him to get a new site plan.
I was just asking, because if the person that I was on the phone with was the previous architect.
No, that was my architect.
That was your architect?
My architect,
Okay.
correct. The previous one, I got his number later, I called him, and he said he'll look into what he can do, but that was a week ago, and he still hasn't returned my call. He was probably trying to have something for me today, but he never called me back. So I know my architect personally, so that's why I was using him. I don't know, like I said, I can't speak for how fast it's going to take him to finish this, depending on what his workload looks like. But he's also, I've known him a very long time, so if I tell him to, speed it up, he might put me ahead of he might be able to help me. I can't say for sure, but I would like to believe he can kind of help me out to get this project moving forward.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Chair, so I just want to affirm the dimensional requirements for the architectural and building design. So we require, let me go to the zoning, the picture of the form-based code. So we require a minimum facade height that's different from a building height. Building height, we have no minimum height requirements, but facade height could be, just, those fake false facades that you see sometimes on one-story buildings. So, like like if this were to extend by a foot, and just show that it is 16 feet in height, because that's the type of character that we're building in that area. So it's not actually raising the roof. It is...
Yeah, you just want like a little extension that rises above the roof to 16 feet. I understand.
Exactly. So that's the facade height. That seems like that's doable. However, the minimum ground floor height, we do have at 12 feet, and I think the building is 10 feet tall.
No, I think it's more than 10 feet tall.
All right, well, the site plan says that was submitted in 2020, it was 10 feet.
Okay.
So if it's greater than 10 feet, we might be in business.
Yeah, because if you double me, I'm 6 foot, that's 12 feet. If you double me twice, I think it's probably like 18 feet high, the actual building itself.
Okay, so
if the building is 18 feet, then everything that we've got there, we wouldn't have to put the additional facade on to make it 16 feet, would we? Because it's already up to 16 feet, which I believe it is. I believe it is at least 16 feet.
we still have to talk about the transparency requirements. So if, depending on what the planning commission desires, that might be a case for the zoning board of appeals to determine if this, if they can receive a dimensional variance. I'll have to figure that one out.
I mean, I guess we can add it. My guy and I, when we sat down to do it, we just thought a lot more of the Birmingham looking buildings were just nice, clean, one height. Whenever you start putting the middle height taller, the two less, that building was kind of like, it just looks already dated. I didn't want to build a structure and pay all this money to have a dated looking building. I want it to be like modern, nice, 2024 look, very clean, elegant, and classy. And the stone that they were going to put on it, if you look at some of these liquor stores that have that stone on it, it just looks too busy, there's too much going on, and it's not visually appealing.
I actually agree with that. That
Sure.
horrific party store on 8 Mile.
Yeah, it has all the stones on it. It's just too much on the eyes.
Sure.
Go ahead.
There's not a clear avenue with the zoning board of appeals because they're trained also not to support cases that aren't self-created hardships. Exactly. So, Commissioner Naylor, with your experience on this, how hard is it to pop out some windows along Kelly? Because that's,
Well, my only question, along the Kelly side, because the building faces 8 Mile.
The frontage, correct, the front faces 8
I'm trying to
Mile.
understand, and I know we have the ordinance, I'm not saying bypass the ordinance, but this building are you saying we approved the building with one window,
Correct.
and even though we know the building doesn't face Kelly, but if a building was facing Kelly, we have how much, transparency to go to the front of that building, right? But we're looking at the side of his building that faces Kelly, which Kelly has too many different building stores. I'm just trying to figure out, how much window would he open? It's not like that's the front of the building. And he does have merchandise in there. You don't want to be in a grab and, what do they call it?
Snatch and grab.
Yeah, so,
You know,
have a window there
and
to
I've,
see, was that approved, but now it no longer meets qualification? That small window still there?
the window on the side is still there.
So he met the glazing there, and we say we open up more, and it's not even a building that faces.
I spoke to my attorney, two of them, about the window and all that, and their thought was the same as mine, that the structure was approved and it was built. He didn't finish the actual cosmetic. The actual structure that was approved was built the way it was supposed to. He didn't finish like I said, just the cosmetic of it, but the physical building was built correctly. And just because he didn't face the front of the building, I don't think I should be held responsible for adding windows in when it was built to code at the time. And the structure, had he not completed the actual building, I would agree with you, but the actual building is already built. It's just not cosmetically finished. It's basically like throwing up drywall and not painting it, and then having an issue with the drywall because it's not painted. I don't, everybody I've spoken to said that's probably not right.
I'm just want to ask the question again. I'm just not, I don't know what we can do, and we're trying to support.
I appreciate it.
From a construction standpoint, that is going to be comprehensive, because now he has brick supporting brick, now he has to build that solid enough for glass to support brick. And the side of a building, to cut it to it, that's not just an easy thing, it's like you say, structurally already connected. So to open up the brickwork and now have to support the glass with masonry work, it might have been structured a little bit differently, what you would put above the glass. So now you got to try and get your steel beam in there to hold the weight of the brick above it, and it's not an easy just pop out a few bricks and put it.
It's definitely not. You gotta have some planning, and the architect's gotta draw that as well too.
The weight of what that architect designed. So, everything can be done at a cost. Again, I'm just thinking, since it's not a forward-facing street, and most of our glazing is pertaining to street facing of the building, the frontage of a building, and the amount of glasses on the frontage, the front of that building meets it. Now we're saying, but it's facing Kelly, so now the side needs to look like the front of a building.
okay, so I
I'm
have
asking that question.
Hold on. Mr. Levesque.
Two comments here, just for clarity. Although he may have completed the building, he has to complete the building to site plan approval for it to be legitimate. So it's an illegitimate building, I don't care if it's just drywall or what. Now, having said that, I'm going to ask my fellow commissioners to consider a building in East Point. It sits at 9 Mile and Kelly, known as CVS. Along the 9 Mile side, it has technically windows. They are fake windows. They look like windows, but they are blocked off. They do not see into the building. So if he were to do something like this on Kelly, I think we need to ask ourselves, is that something we really want in our standard is fake windows? And I'll leave that up to each individual to answer that question. Now, having said that, let's get back to the original situation that we have here. What legitimate avenues do we have with this building?
Sure.
And that is, we cannot extend the old site plan, because it is far expired, and even based on when they would have previously asked for the extension, may still not have met the standards and may not have been eligible. And number two, what leeway do we have under the new standards? And I believe Ms. Brazaszewski has stated a couple of times, with our zoning ordinance review that we are about to embark upon, that's some discussion that we can have tonight. If we want more leeway, there may be a path to put that in. Now, having said that, the problem we have here is one that we see all too frequently. We get somebody that comes in, grabs up a building, starts bleeding their cash reserves in order to try to open a business, only to find out that had they known everything ahead of time, they might have walked away from it, because it would have been too costly to bring into compliance. We've got a gentleman here who I can understand the necessity of having to want to open his business as soon as possible. And even if we do the zoning ordinance changes that are possible, we're probably looking at legitimately, as fast track as we could be, at least 2 more months. That's 2 more months that this gentleman is on the hook paying bills for a business location he cannot use. So, I don't know what the solution here is. But I do know we have a lot more questions to answer to try to get to that solution.
I think it's safe to say the first step is to revoke the original site plan. The next step would be to create a new site plan, and then maybe we can get that, you never know, maybe you've got the height on the inside, and to Commissioner Liebach's point, we do not need fake windows. Now, having been in retail all of my professional life, I will say that windows make for beautiful displays, and anybody driving down Kelly Road, or potentially walking down Kelly Road, if the future vision of Kelly comes to fruition, will probably be more impressed with nice visual cues in windows. And I do know that there is some loss of display space, but I also know that glass windows can be shelved with glass shelves, things can be put on them. I also know the brackets can be put on the walls over the glass. To make Commissioner Naylor's point, I know that it is a horrific amount of money to do it, but, you know, if there is no way around it, it's still workable. I mean, it's just incredibly expensive, and I'm hoping that maybe without Ms. Brazaszewski blowing her gasket, we can find a way to help this man.
Chair.
Please.
So, to Commissioner Naylor's point, we could consider the 8 Mile entrance as the primary facade, and we could credit the 40% transparency requirement to 8 Mile, as opposed to Kelly. And then the commission could, if we make that, enter an agreement with the applicant that they might install a mural along the Kelly Road.
What kind of mural would you guys suggest on there? I didn't have any plans to just put a mural on there. I kind of wanted to keep the building just clean, really just, I wanted a Birmingham building in East Point. I want it to be pristine.
They're East Point, we're not Birmingham, we're a local.
Yeah, but I think having that type of structure then when generally what happens is people tend to follow suit. So when they see something nice, then the next person tries to put something nice, and then all of a sudden it's like a domino effect. So, when you get people that do, I'm sure you guys experience all sorts of whatever I say I'm going to do. So, I think if you start putting, murals are nice, but I think they should be dedicated to, a specific building, in the city, maybe the city building, or I don't think we should just be putting murals on regular retailer stores or anything like that. I think giving them an actual beautiful structure is more important than the actual mural on the building, because then what's to say the mural goes against, my type of business or the clothing I'm selling, or it doesn't fit the image of the brand or the store. Now you guys I'm not against you asking that, but me having to put something like on the side of a building, I don't think like a CVS would be asked to do that, or a Foot Locker, or...
Foot Locker did.
Oh, well, Foot Locker, yeah.
What is a Foot Locker? Sure.
Yeah, and it's also a Foot Locker neighborhood store, which is the concept of that store throughout the country. There's only like 15 of those.
Actually, we were the very first.
We're the first, but there is a few in the country that have a similar effect, and that's kind of what they do for that particular type of Foot Locker. It's called like a family or a neighborhood Foot Locker.
Our son.
So that's what they do for those specific type of Foot Lockers. But not all Foot Lockers have that type of image or look. That's a special type of Foot Locker that has that.
A new facade on the outside of the building will be nice.
Yeah,
But something to break the eye and make the building look
Yeah.
even better would be nice. And whether it's a mural, which I would like to see, or even if it's some sort of visual cue for your store.
we can probably maybe put something like that has to do with my store or something, so you want to like kind of paint it on, basically, you're saying, like a murals
I
or...
defer to Ms. Bronchevsky in the city, but
Sure.
yes.
My opinion would be, when I agree with the applicant, I think that what he's trying to do with the store is, I like a clean look. I don't think that particular retail store, a mural would detract from it. I'm thinking that you've got a lot of median right there that maybe, and I know landscape is a requirement anyway, but that would break up the building and still keep the building nice and clean and pristine. I don't want to detract from something that looks really good. I'm just thinking the landscape would break up the visual.
We can put some trees or something along that, along that.
Trees would be better than the mural.
Yeah, I think
Based on
so.
the facade you already used on the front, the mural would be too much of a...
But I mean, all the work we're gonna put in the facade, you're gonna put trees and block it. I mean, I'd rather have it, have people like be able to see the entire, look at how beautiful that looks. I mean,
That is nice.
It'll be better than what it is.
yeah. It'll be
The trees will
way better.
make Mr. Kraus happy because we need more trees.
You know what, if you guys would like me to put trees, I have no problem putting a tree line. If you want to pick the tree, I have no issue with getting something beautiful there for you guys.
Commissioner Lewinsky for the win. Lewinsky for the win.
It's just a suggestion in my opinion.
Thank you.
And no rope lighting or she will picket your building.
Yeah, no, we'll get all the lighting, of course, approved by the city to make sure that it's up to your guys' standard as well.
You got a promise right there, no rope lighting.
Yeah. I don't,
No windows would
No fake.
definitely denote rope lighting
Oh, come
around.
on, I've seen rope lighting on the tops of buildings.
oh, no, yeah, definitely no rope lighting.
Okay, so...
What's our next step, Ms. Bronchevsky?
I just want to point out that the landscaping is mandatory, so it's not going to be in lieu of us using 8 Mile frontage versus Kelly frontage. Landscaping is mandatory, so I would also recommend if the planning commission wants the site plan to be reviewed administratively, then to allow for us administration to waive excessive landscaping requirements as we're right-sizing within the zoning ordinance update. You guys are familiar with this? Okay, so we have some recommendations to waive some landscaping and pay in lieu of landscaping. So maybe within your motion today, you might want to add something like that if you do want this to be administrative. However, Mr. Albright, I'll defer to you if you recommend that the planning commission should revisit this conversation again. I think so too. Okay. And then the other thing I would point out is that the applicant must provide by the blank wall provision. So right now, the Kelly Road frontage is violating the blank wall provision, as you can see. So we do need some architectural variation in here. One tool is a mural, but we can talk about other materials or options like soldier course, interesting brickwork, something like that, but not all of the same flat, plain facade material. We need some variation in here. Thank you.
So I think our next move is to revoke the original site plan.
Chair, my colleagues in the Community Economic Development Department have something to contribute.
Hey, Chair, I just have a suggestion for this situation. So I really appreciate the fact that we are, integrating green infrastructure into this conversation, but I do want to bring to light also alternatives to trees, potentially even a green wall for that facade. That is a method that is starting to become more prevalent in urban conditions such as this, and it also helps with, enhancing the infiltration of stormwater as well in a aesthetically pleasing way. So I just wanted to bring awareness to that idea as well.
I don't even know what's a green wall?
So you just have, it's basically a living wall, so you have
okay.
greenery that lines the facade, and you can do it in a way that is, of preference to you in your development interest.
So would you have to do the whole wall, or like at the airport? Has anybody seen those?
On the inside.
Yeah.
Yeah. It can just be a section. I think that even that would be a nice improvement and upgrade to that situation for the facade.
Well, at least you wouldn't have to worry about the bricks of your building being penetrated and destroyed like old buildings.
Yeah, I know.
You would destroy
Yeah,
them.
so I mean, let me ask you, so if we did the green wall on that, would it be, can I just go over that block right there, or would you require me to do the building and then go over the building after I finish it? There's no point to actually do the building if I'm gonna green wall that. I can just green wall right over the block, if that was something we were gonna
I think
do.
the green walling would take better to brick than it would a facade.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I would be in agreement with that.
We need to revoke the first site plan.
Chair, the problem with a green wall or living wall is that it could die. So if it does die, then we would be stuck with a CMU block facade that it's not allowed in our ordinance. So we would need to have some sort of provision in there. If there's no green wall, then the applicant must install facade.
But that would be
campus.
with a new site, that would have to be built into a new site plan.
Yeah, that could be language written on the site plan application or submission. And we have allowed in the past other applicants to use the CMU block because they write on their site plan that they're going to install a mural, which is easier to paint over. CMU block is easier to paint over within like 1 year of site plan approval. So we've done that before.
But if we approve that with a green wall, wouldn't that green wall have to be maintained? So that if it, for whatever reason, it should die, it would have to be replanted?
But as suggested, so if I leave it the block, paint it, and put a mural on it, that is an option? So I don't have to do nothing to the block, I can just paint it and put a mural on it. That might not be a bad idea. Saves me some money from doing one side of the building.
Mrs. Jelinski? Okay.
Yeah, so one idea that I had was if we were to do a mural, we are the gateway to Macomb County, and that is one of our gateway corridors, so some sort of mural that would pay homage to that, I think would look really nice, both for folks that are driving into the city, but also those that are walking, would be right there. Nice photo op opportunity, and a way to highlight that moniker.
And would there be the potential, just throwing it out there, grants and things like that to maybe assist the gentleman to have some professional person come in and put something very nice to?
That's a possibility, certainly we can look into that.
I would probably trust your guys to do the mural more than my guys.
Trust them more.
Yeah,
There's a lady that did a mural in our children's garden. It looks very nice.
yeah.
Wendy Popko. She's, I think, pretty well known in Macomb County. But these are the guys that would be the ones that would.
Because I don't know anybody that could probably do a good as job as their guys, that's for sure. So,
Just options for you
Right.
to consider.
and I appreciate all of them. So I'll get working, I'm gonna talk to my architect, get the site plan.
Text him tonight.
I'll text him, literally, I'll text him as soon as it's not too late. I'll text him before I leave here, I'll get the new site plan drawn up. Are we okay with leaving the window and the building the way it is and get a new site plan going with the window and the structure the way it is, and we can just do that? I truly didn't want to be responsible, because like she said, to put the block in the window, to structurally make it sound, it's just a whole nother can. And let's just say they do make a mistake and there's an error there, and then we got to fix the error, and, to mess with a building that's already built, there's a lot of, we don't want to open a can of worms here for something that's already structurally sound.
I mean, the building faces east, and so the transparency is met by our zoning requirements for the facade face of the building. So we can't say, oh, well, it's not facing Kelly. These big windows, I think that sidewall has several options that we discussed, agree with.
Whether it's a mural or a green wall.
Mural or green wall.
Okay.
On the facade and green trees on the side of it, finish out whatever we discuss, long-term decision.
So I think we have a course here. The first step is to revoke, or get a motion to revoke.
File a motion to revoke the original site plan from 2019 that has expired.
Actually, wouldn't it be a motion to deny the extension?
There's actually,
Do we deny the extension?
there's actually,
There is a recommendation.
planning department has prepared a recommended motion, which is in your pack.
There we go.
Where is it?
On page 3.
Okay, we'll read this recommendation.
Okay. You gonna make that motion?
I'll make that motion. Motion is to deny the site plan extension of 20770 Kelly Road because the 2020 site plan does not meet the 2023 ordinance standards. The project experienced a 4-year time lapse and now is outdated and does not reflect city policy. Furthermore, per section 12.07E, revocation, since the project did not progress in a manner consistent with the approved site plan, we revoke the January 2020 site plan.
I will support that motion.
We have motion and support. Secretary, please call the roll.
Ms. Naylor?
Yes.
Mr. Lubak?
Yes.
Mr. Stokes?
Yes.
Ms. Zelinski, yes. Mr. DeHaan?
Yes. So you have your path. They'll be more than happy to work with and help you out as best they can.
All right, one other question. I was reading the materials that I'm allowed to use on the building. So there's a different type of method of what we put on the front. It's like a stucco and EIFS. So I'm just trying to figure out, can I include that to do the rest of the building in the same way I've done it? If you go by it and look at it, of how it looks, it's not gonna be able to, you're not gonna be able to smash it, crack it. There's a special material they lay underneath it. And of course, if anything does happen to it, I put it in writing that it'll be fixed immediately as well, too.
Chair. So exterior insulation and finishing systems, EIFS, and stucco are not allowed as a primary building material. They're only allowed as an accent material, and both cannot exceed up to 10% of each facade. So on page 31 of section 608, we have a list of all of the allowed materials. And you're in the mixed use one, so you can use all of these with the P on it. Are you saying that this material right now is?
It is kind of like a stucco EIFS, but there's a method to how they change the look of it, so it looks like a limestone. So that would be my question. Because I've already put all the money into the front of it, would I maybe technically be allowed to use my 10-10-10 all on one side and then do the other 3 sides something else, potentially, just to kind of, because we've already I would ask if I could use the 10% on each side all on one side and then go around and use the materials required for the other 3 sides.
So it seems like you're using a manufactured stone. But anyway, in any regards, the Planning Commission has the opportunity to waive materials. So just come in, present the material, maybe bring in a sample.
Okay.
People have done that in the past, and they can deliberate.
Okay, cool, yeah, I'll bring it in then.
And when does this gentleman need to have his site plan to move this along? You said the 15th?
15th. The deadline was Tuesday, but we can give you the 15th.
15th, okay. And then if I bring it by the 15th, I come back here, the first Thursday or first Thursday in May, is that when I come back?
Correct.
And now, once I bring the site plan, or we get it submitted and we bring it back and we meet here on that day, I'll probably bring the materials with me that day. And then will that day give us the ability to look at what's happening and then say, I can either move forward, or is there anything else that's at question at that time?
I would recommend that your architect, whoever's putting it together, work very closely with the city administration. That way, Thursday night, the 2nd, when you come in, things are rather seamless, and there's less to deliberate and fight over.
Okay. Yeah, no problem.
So I would work as closely with them as possible.
Okay.
And if something's put forward that is not appropriate, they're going to tell you.
Okay, so I can bring basically the materials here to show them, and I don't have to wait to bring them to show you guys?
Correct.
Okay, perfect. So I can bring those in anytime before I even submit my...
You'll probably want to do both.
Okay, so I'll have them with me.
Them first.
Them first, then for you guys on May 2nd. Or May, yes. Okay,
They're your gatekeepers.
yeah.
Chair, I'd just like to make a reminder for everyone that needs my services. I'm here all day on Tuesday.
Okay,
Okay, but please email me and we can create an appointment.
yes. Okay, understood. Thank you. I appreciate your time. You guys have a good night. Thank you.
I think we have
Are we all set? Oh, good, thank you. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Moving down this agenda, I'm looking at the next item of new business, and I believe we might better be able to serve the commission in terms of time if we table item B until after we have completed item C, which is a receive an update on the Kelly Road Complete Streets Corridor Plan, which is recommended for adoption in May of 2024. So I make that motion to table
until
after item C.
All right. We have a motion. Do we have support for that?
Second.
We have motion and support. Secretary, please call the roll.
Mr. Lubeck?
Yes.
Ms. Naylor?
Yes.
Mr. Stokes?
Yes.
Ms. Julinski, yes. Chairman DeHaan?
Yes. All right, so we'll jump to item C. Who's presenting?
That would be me.
Floor is yours.
All right, good evening, Chair and Commission members. So, as you know, we have been in the process, thanks to a grant from the Southwest Michigan Council of Governments, of working with the cities of Harper Woods and Detroit to develop a complete streets corridor plan that looks at the future of Kelly Road between roughly 7 to 10 Mile Road. We had a great community engagement session on Thursday, March 21st, from 5:30 to 7:30 at Christian Trinity Church on Kelly, just north of Topher on the east side. It was well attended, and we also have a survey online for folks to share their thoughts in addition to the opportunity that they had at the event. We've received over 100 survey responses so far, so very exciting. And as promised too, I should mention that not only did we mail the flyer to every single address on Kelly Road, Mr. Kraus and I also personally hand-delivered them to every single address between 8 and 10 miles. So working on that engagement piece that we keep talking about. And I also want to thank Commissioner Naylor for attending the event. I'm not sure, I don't think I saw other numbers, but I wanted to be sure to thank her for coming. Let's see. Oh, and I also wanted to mention too, we got some nice write-ups both before and after the event in the East Sider as well as in the Macomb Daily. So as far as the timeline for moving forward, our next step is to present the final draft to you all at your next meeting on May 2nd, and then we would, after that, after you've reviewed it and recommended it for adoption, hopefully, to City Council, we would then present it to them at their regular meeting on the 7th. After the plan is adopted, and this is kind of a quick turnaround, so we are trying to continue to proceed with things. We would be applying for some federal funding through the Safe Streets and Roads for All program for a planning and demonstration grant. The next funding deadline for that is May 16th at 5 p.m. We have our wonderful engineers at AEW who have very enthusiastically been working with our planning firm McKenna to finalize that and get that submitted by the deadline. So basically, that funding would allow us to conduct the additional engagement and planning activities that would then make us eligible and ready to apply for an implementation grant in 2025. Kind of the last piece I want to talk about is continuing the engagement through the end of this month. If you go out into City Hall atrium, there are the boards from the engagement event that we had. You can continue to look at them, share your thoughts via sticky notes, and of course reach out to myself or Zoning Administrator Wolf if you have any questions or want to discuss the designs in detail. Also want to reiterate that these are conceptual at this point. We will have additional engagement opportunities, so this is not set in stone per se. So if you do have strong feelings about doing anything, not doing anything, definitely would encourage you to continue to engage. Either on the board, we also have a survey on the website and a web page that breaks down what a complete street is and more or less what we're trying to accomplish. The other thing I want to mention too is Kelly between 7 and 10 Mile Road. The makeup of the road is vastly different in that some areas it's heavily commercial, some areas it's heavily residential. Of course, at East Point Middle School on there. So we are trying to be sensitive not only to the needs of the community, both current and future, but also the existing conditions today.
Mr. McCain?
Yes.
This body and prior members saw this vision 6 years ago when we did the master plan.
Sure.
And we all decided that the greatest opportunity in the city was Kelly Road.
And we are continuing to move that forward today, Chair.
It's just sad that it's taken 6 years for people to wake up and realize that there's so much that can be done on Kelly Road.
Better late than never, right?
I guess.
And there's federal funding to help us along the way this time, and we have the partnership with Harper Woods and the City of Detroit that also makes any proposal for funding, be it planning or implementation, that much stronger.
What is the survey that you've done in the general discussion? And I apologize for not being there, but unfortunately, this is my busiest time of the year. What's the general feedback been?
I would say it has been relatively positive overall, just in terms of people being interested, as you stated, as you've been hearing since you last updated the master plan, and seeing some new things on Kelly Road, whether it be some redesigning of the streetscape, whether it be supporting existing businesses while also attracting new businesses to the corridor, enhancing the green space that exists, making it safer for folks that are biking or taking transit. So it's kind of a combination of a lot of different things, and that's the idea of a complete street, right? No matter who you are, no matter what method of transportation you're taking on the corridor, whether you're walking, biking, taking a bus, or driving, you would have safe and equitable access.
Anybody have any questions for Mr. McCain? Anything on here? Okay, is that it?
That is all I have for you this evening, unless anyone has any questions now, or happy to answer those after the meeting as well.
Okay, thank you.
I have one question. When will the survey results be shared, or are you still collecting?
Yeah, so good question, Commissioner Naylor. Survey responses both on the boards as well as online, which if you haven't taken the survey online or shared on the boards, please do that as soon as possible. We are going to be collecting until the end of the month, but obviously the sooner you get them in the better, and those survey responses will be compiled and shared, probably like a summary of responses like we normally do, right, for the master plan, some similar planning processes in the draft plan that we share with you on the 2nd and City Council on the 7th.
Okay. Any other questions? Seeing none, we'll move on to Ms. Brzezowski. You're on deck. Item B.
Wonderful, thank you. Let's go to memo within your packet, and we'll begin our conversation. So we already gave a preliminary overview of the zoning ordinance updates in our March meeting. But now we will open the floor for discussion. So the key changes in this update include right-sizing the excessive landscaping requirements, as we've been talking about ad nauseam, adding more green infrastructure policy, and correcting an exclusionary use standard, because we do not want, what's illegal to have exclusionary uses, so we can't do that, and to streamline business processes. So that being said, the first order of changes in Article 2, I'll just highlight the most important ones. Allowing childcare centers as permitted uses in R2 instead of special land uses. So this is a best practice that my colleagues at McKenna are performing within Macomb County on childcare deserts. And one policy to be more open to childcare centers is to allow them in districts where it makes sense as permitted uses. So I can show you a map of the zoning map, and you can look at what R2 means. R2 is the orange parcels. So these are where existing schools are located, and we are looking to allow for childcare centers at these parcels by right. I'll keep going and then we can ask questions as needed or reserve. Additionally, we want to add smoke shop back on. I know the planning commission talked about this, but we as an administration understand the challenges that just open use of tobacco are having within our residents, especially targeted at the youth and high schoolers. So we would like to add more standards and discretion as we allow for smoke shops to open. And the police chief also would like to see this as a use with additional use standards. Within your packet, I also included an article of how Michigan lags in tobacco education and it's killing residents. So these are all items that the city administration wanted to share.
If we're gonna put the smoke shop back in play, maybe is the definition included with vape and things like that? Because that seems to be much more of a prevalent issue than anything else.
Yes, we can look at the definition. Do you want me to wait till we get to the glossary, or do you want to look now?
Let's look now.
Okay.
I just remember that being a bone of contention at one point.
Retail establishment with the primary purpose of selling tobacco or tobacco-less vapor products with nicotine, which includes but is not limited to electronic cigarettes, e-cigars, e-cigarillos, e-pipes, e-hookahs, or electronic nicotine delivery systems that allows the user to simulate cigarette smoking and ingest nicotine.
All right, so it's only essentially targeted towards nicotine. Isn't marijuana a vapable substance now? Does that need to be discussed? Does that need to be part of it?
Marijuana is not allowed.
Well, I'm just saying that there are some, I've been informed, sadly, because a lot of my friends seem to be enjoying this a little bit too much, that it can be in a vapor form. So you're saying it would not need to be mentioned in this?
No, it doesn't. We can add that provision if you want, but this only refers to cigarette smoking and nicotine. Ingesting nicotine, not marijuana. That's what a smoke shop's allowed to do. Okay, so back to Article 2. Moving on to Article 4. Okay, so this is where we have the exclusionary zoning, and it's not allowed by state law. So we have to, currently we have a gas station provision that doesn't allow gas stations from 300 feet from a residential use. And since no properties in East Point would allow us to ever have a gas station within 300 feet because they're all closer than 300 feet to residential use, we need to modify this and add 100 feet as the buffer. So that's to meet state law. And then we add in standards for smoke shops. So a smoke shop cannot be closer than 1,000 feet to any other tobacco or smoke shops or schools, measured property line to property line.
Could we include child care facilities within that?
Yes, of course.
Okay, I've got to ask, how does smoke shop affect drugstores, party stores, gas stations, which all seem to carry tobacco products?
Chair.
Please.
Smoke shops are for the sole purpose of selling nicotine products. All of the others have multiple purposes.
So they would be essentially exempt.
And perhaps regulated by the state.
Regulated by the state, just like the grocery store, anything else.
Okay.
Okay. Article 6. Okay, so we have a modification in the side yard setback. I've talked with our building official. He's a great guy, by the way. He says that we need a 5-foot side yard setback instead of the 4-foot we have to meet Michigan Building Code. So always happy to see a builder's eye and comply, so we're going to change that. We're also going to allow rain barrels, if you guys allow this. But the proposed option is to allow rain barrels in the side yard setback. And additionally, I wanted to talk with you today about how we determine, let's go here, let me hack it up. Bear with me. How we determine blank walls and transparency. So we don't assign a facade. This is open up to the interpretation that all facades could comply or must comply with the blank wall provisions, which I do recommend, and all facades must comply with the transparency recommendations or requirements, which maybe we don't want. So perhaps we want to say that all walls must meet the blank wall provision, but maybe just the primary walls must meet the transparency provisions? Or do we want transparency provisions all around in our new, as we engage in new construction within the city?
So determine what a primary wall is. Is that the front door?
Yes.
I mean, you wouldn't want windows in the back of a building because typically businesses have deliveries made, and you definitely don't need windows back there because it would certainly be a smash and grab opportunity. You know, the old merchant in me, I like air, brightness, I like windows, but I'm also not willing to cripple somebody's business because I happen to like windows. Some people might not like windows. But I think the outside of a building needs to be aesthetically pleasing, whether it's visual cues with light boxes and imagery inside of it, not rope lighting, or green walls, or appropriate murals. But, you know, I don't see any need for windows in the back of a building. And I think to Ms. Naylor's point earlier, if the front of the building is right, you're good. I mean, I think this gentleman's building was a one-off, frankly. And it's just sad that it's, you know, it's so difficult to meander our way through it.
Chair? So I'm hearing, and also I see this provision in here, so perhaps the interpretation of this ordinance should be that the facade transparency requirement is for facades that abut a public right-of-way. So right here and right here, but not the back of the building where there's the parking.
Other than that would have included the Kelly Road side of the gentleman that was here earlier, since Kelly Road is a public right-of-way.
Chair, was that a question?
It's more of a comment.
I I didn't hear it.
Okay, when you say abutting a public right-of-way, that leads to the Kelly Road side of the, then, yes, that abuts a public right-of-way, Kelly Road.
Yep, so the provision would be included if this was new built, along this sidewalk, and along this sidewalk, but not the parking lot.
Which
Well, actually,
technically was the back of the building there. The Weber side of that is technically the back of the building. And then again, we get into the situation that I mentioned earlier, the CVS on 9 Mile Road, where along 9 Mile, a public right-of-way, we have a bunch of false windows.
Never know that, we didn't say that. And shut the window.
next time look for the window.
I will close.
I mean, I just think this building is it's an awkward spot, and he's got 2 right-of-ways, essentially.
Well, 3 if you count Weber.
True.
Okay. Sure. We don't need to go back to this conversation, but moving forward, I think that, are you comfortable with this interpretation of the ordinance? And I'll put in some clarifying language that all building facades that are new built must meet blank wall provisions, and all facades that abut public right-of-way must meet transparency requirements.
I don't know if I'm there.
Again, that's my concern when I look at that building, because we'd be having him put windows along the Weber side of that as well, under that definition, unless I am not understanding that definition.
I mean,
This is new built.
yeah, I understand it being...
This is not a new build, he has a prior site plan.
I'm saying if he wanted to build that building today, this is what we'd be telling him. You're gonna put windows along Kelly Road and along Weber. And is that really what we want to be telling people?
Is Weber's the side street behind it?
Yeah.
Yes.
So you're saying have to face every street? You want windows facing
No.
any building, any side of the building that's facing the street?
I think it's overreach trying to tell somebody that they have to put windows
Well,
around.
and then technically, if you look at that building, does what we are calling the front of that building actually abut the right-of-way of 8 Mile? And because the Foot Locker is there, I think that answer would be no.
I mean, buildings in general, I mean, we have to look past that building, even though that was...
No, but it is a perfect example to ask this question.
You're right.
Based on the definition that we're discussing.
You know, in theory, you think about your Four Corners project, that, you know, the vision for 25 years down the road, and 9 Mile and Gratiot are 40 or maybe 150. You know, in theory, the idea is to put something of height at 9 Mile and Gratiot. So are you saying that they've got to, you know, it's an awkward situation. I just don't think it's our right to tell somebody they have to put all these windows in. I think it needs to be handled administratively, or it needs to be handled on a case-by-case situation. If you have a beautiful parkway, of course you're going to want to put some windows in to take advantage of the flora and the fauna, but if you are abutting an auto mechanic shop...
You gotta think of the nature of the business, so I don't know if we can just go straight across the board, because some buildings do not need windows for the purpose of their operations. I understand the facade, the door entrance, and transparency, but some businesses do not, you don't want all those walls open, and windows. Honestly, I don't administrate based on the business going into the space. Or what's being constructed, the purpose of use.
I would concur with that. I mean, I don't know how else to word it, but I just don't think that it's appropriate to require all those windows in every circumstance. Certain circumstances, yes, but not every.
Okay, sure. Am I hearing that we want to interpret to require transparency in all facades that abut public right-of-way, but administration or planning commission have the right to waive? And I want to point out too, if you guys can tell on the screen, the Michigan Economic Development Corporation Redevelopment Ready Community Program requires a transparency provision within a zoning ordinance as part of the program.
So we're gonna cost Mr. McCain some points if we say no? We got you a lot of points elsewhere.
Even if we say on the front, the primary entrance wall, but do we have to designate, it has to be side walls, every wall? I would just say primary entrance walls.
From my, go ahead. Jim, from my experience working with the MEDC RRC community program, they're looking for the transparency along all public facades along public right-of-ways. But I think that they would be comfortable with the planning commission to waive, because again, all not all businesses might not need windows, or for safety provisions might not be able to have windows, so.
I would think that offering flexibility within this option would make it far more appealing as a redevelopment-ready option.
I like the way they live in a vacuum. Here's the answer and it fits all situations. And when you're sitting up here, you find out that pie in the sky doesn't always work. Like I said, I was just using that building from earlier as an example of the way I'm interpreting what this says, which was all three of those sides would have had to have windows. And actually, the one side is actually the back of the building, for all intents and purposes. I mean, we had a great debate here over just the windows on the Kelly Road side. Imagine what would have happened if we would have had to consider the Weber side.
Chair?
Please.
So I see right now we have, is it 40% on the first floor, I think, and 25% on additional floors? I think the other thing we want to consider too is there are a variety of different kinds of windows, right? Like not everything has to be like a display window, right? For like a retail store, you can have the little windows that are up above that are letting light in, but you know, someone from the street, whether they're walking or driving by, can't necessarily see in. So maybe a happy medium, I don't, and I'll defer to Planning Bratuszewski if this would work, is to maybe reduce the, like the minimum on the first floor from 40 down to the 25, so it's consistent throughout the entire building. And just consider that some of those other window options are available.
See, now, I would be okay with it saying on the primary side. I'm okay with 40% on the primary side. It's the other sides that where my wiggle room comes in.
But I could see what you're saying. I'm just questioning, is 25 excessive if you were maybe considering like a high elevation row of glass block windows? Is 25 excessive?
What might you suggest instead?
I don't have a suggestion. It is a question. I'm considering the windows here behind us.
Right.
How much of that would be excessive?
Chair, the result of this ordinance in front of us, the Ford-based code, is a series of conversations, 1 year's work to create these standards. All I'm asking right now is for the interpretation of what facade do we mean. And the way that this is structured, that I want your backup on here, is that the transparency requirements are the principal facade and the other additional facades that abut the right-of-way, but not the rear or the other side here that abuts another building.
But what if they abut a right-of-way is the question?
So yes, we would require it, but now I'm asking you if you want the discretion to waive.
I think there needs to be a mechanism to waive some of this option. I just don't, I'm just not willing to tell somebody that they have to put windows in if it's not adding anything to the aesthetic of the building, or if it's not adding anything to the aesthetic of the community. Why would we force somebody to put windows in?
Can you say include some language that were permitted to be waived by the planning commission?
Anything?
I mean, I don't mind if it's in there as long as we have the ability to use some discretion. Because I don't, and I could be wrong, but I don't think anybody here would want to insist on putting windows on the Weber side of the building we discussed earlier, which would be a distinct possibility based on how we word this ordinance.
What about a provision, Chair? What about a provision that included the language that we wanted for using murals and green walls as opposed to flat out 40% or 25%?
Absolutely.
Aren't those two different issues?
Sure. So I'm hearing that the primary facade must meet the transparency requirements, but additional public right-of-way, or additional facades that abut the public right-of-way can meet the transparency requirements or use other architectural variation, like green walls or murals, to meet the interesting architectural feature component of 40%.
I would still also include a waiver in there.
At the discretion of planning commission and zoning administration. Okay, heard. Good policy. Are we comfortable moving to Article 8?
I have a question on the blank wall.
Okay.
So what are the options for a blank wall? So we have the green wall, we have a mural, or they can do a different type of facade. I'm
Yes.
sorry to make you go back.
Architectural features, I believe.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's a good question. So, an articulated wall could mean window treatment, door openings. It could involve different colors, materials. It can involve columns, awnings, overhangs, lintels, pediments, pilasters, soldier course brick. So let's just go to like one of these pilaster image. Okay, something like that, a lintel image. So this is something above a primary entrance to, well, that's for primary entrances more so. Let's go to soldier course brick. Soldier course brick. So that's that differentiation in brick along a facade that you see, the details, like these little bricks here. Maybe we can find better.
Did you say an awning was an option too?
Yep, awnings, windows, color paint, materials.
Okay, so they have a lot of options for a blank wall without having to have windows,
Yeah,
if they choose.
yes they do.
And I get it as a business, but I'm thinking of as a house, do I want my house to not have windows on one side? And I get they're two different animals, but
In a house, you gotta have them to make sure somebody can get out in case of a fire. It's required.
I get that. I love lights, natural lights. But yes, I don't want to force someone to put in something that isn't conducive to their business. I also don't want a city of murals, and I love murals.
I do too. Strategically placed.
Oddly, I like ghost signs.
I'm sorry.
Ghost signs. It would be an advertising sign that was painted on the side of a building 60, 70 years ago and was faded.
Oh,
He wants a burner's mural.
I got you.
He said, I like them, I didn't say I wanted a city full of them. I find them an interesting architectural feature.
Yeah, I've seen those.
Set of barns and all that. Ready to move on?
Sure.
We're seeing a lot more of those now in areas where they are tearing down older buildings. Wow. There was an advertising sign on the building next to it.
Okay, Article 8, we revised the intent statement to include low-impact development, and made references to our new Article 9, landscaping and green infrastructure article. We also allowed for permeable, durable pavement for parking areas. However, this pavement still must meet the ADA accessibility requirements, so nothing will be lost there. And we've added a whole new section on electric vehicle supply equipment. So these are electric vehicle charging stations, that's what they're commonly known as, but formally they're known as EVSEs. And we require for new construction, which is a modern practice, to have 20% of the off-street parking to be at least capable of producing an electric vehicle charging station. So that means having the correct infrastructure in place to accommodate a future charging station in the future.
So you're saying a new building has to put an electrical charging station in?
Chair, they have to accommodate a setup for an electric vehicle charging station in the future. So they have to add the infrastructure in, but they don't have to make the full purchase of putting in the actual battery. It is because, our times are changing and we are moving towards electric vehicles, and it is far more expensive to retrofit a building to accommodate electric vehicle infrastructure as opposed to requiring it in new builds today.
I don't disagree that electric vehicles are a thing. Even though if you follow CNBC, you will see that the electric vehicle craze is crashing right now. Witness the price of Tesla stock crashing and Fisker on the verge of bankruptcy, and the fact that GM and Ford have pulled a lot of their investment back. But I think it is onerous to expect or to demand that a new building put something in. Now, I'm not saying that every building should be exempt from it. There are certain things maybe that should be, with a high intensity of, a grocery store potentially, where there would be a lot of cars. But am I going to make a mom and pop restaurant that just happens to put a new building up? Am I going to make them put in the infrastructure for an electric vehicle charging place? I don't think that's appropriate. Where there's high impact of traffic, maybe, but I think it needs to be on a case-by-case situation.
Okay, we can install language for a waiver by planning commission based on the size of development.
Yeah, I'll say based on the size of development, and also was at a new construction site today where they put in some charging stations, and I realized they had oversupplied them. You have 20%, which is 1 in 5 parking spaces being allocated to EV, and they were saying that they were thinking they need 1 per, they had actually said 1 per maybe 50 parking spaces, which is, I don't know what that percent is, but
2%.
2% more so than 20%, because 1 out of 5 is quite a bit.
It's a lot.
Yeah, so.
You go down the Ohio Turnpike, you see all these, at the rest stops, you'll see all these Tesla charging stations. Very few of them are actually used at all.
Or usable.
Yeah, so.
So we have our Community Economic Development Association Michigan Fellow here who also collaborated on incorporating some more of this sustainable policy. And so we'll hear more from him, John Kraus, at the discussion for Article 9. But are we comfortable moving forward with Article 8 and allowing for a waiver?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. Article 9. This work has been a collaboration by our zoning administrator, John Kraus, and myself. I will first talk about some of the changes that I made, and then John will give you an overview of his work. So I provided changes to the site trees, and frontage landscaping and parking lot landscaping. So site trees, we removed that standard because we have already incorporated required trees within the tree frontage landscaping requirement. So that was excessive, we removed it. And then the frontage landscaping requirements, we right-sized excessive standards by reducing the standards. And we used zoning ordinances to understand what was best practice from Royal Oak, Roseville, Fraser, Harper Woods, Van Buren, Charter Township, along with other feedback from senior principal planners within my firm. And that is what we have for you. Those are the changes that we've made. Parking lot landscaping, we just simplified the language and reinforced, that's something that John will talk about. So, do you have any questions about us right sizing this landscaping requirement before John moves into more of the green infrastructure?
Fine.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Mara. Good evening, everybody. So as you can see here, just with the Article 9 title, it's no longer just traditional landscaping that we wanted to factor in green infrastructure, emphasizing the importance of that, especially in enhancing urban conditions to be more permeable. Doing that in a way that really kind of factors in nature-based strategies, so kind of elevating the way in which the landscaping intent statement outlines its benefits, and so highlighting the fact that obviously urban tree canopy improvements can significantly reduce urban heat island effects. That wasn't really highlighted from what I had seen in reviewing this article, so bringing attention to that I think is really important. And then also I felt as if this section, more so than really others, to kind of put into context what the benefits of all of these factors can provide. Diagrams were really helpful, I think, in communicating that message. So I think that having that illustration with the benefits of urban trees, really kind of having this comprehensive illustration of all of those benefits is going to be really effective in the decision-making process for trees. And then also having a additional section that kind of builds on the landscaping component by illustrating how green infrastructure and low-impact development kind of coincide with each other. So obviously, low-impact development is a universal term, but oftentimes gets associated with green infrastructure and specifically stormwater management. And so outlining that in kind of a subsection of the benefits of low-impact development as it pertains to green infrastructure is kind of the route that we decided to go with. And then elevating that even more with illustrations showing the percentage of infiltration that can occur if you add more permeable surface improvements in an urban environment. That I think is really important to communicate. And then I'll make sure that I'm not talking your ear off here, but yeah, I'll just go through just some of the memo descriptions rather than the actual zoning ordinance itself.
Before you go on to your next part.
Sure.
Mr. Lubeck has a comment?
Okay, here on page 4, section 9.04, I'm seeing a description of a bioswale. I don't know how many people remember East Point's first and only short-lived attempt at a bioswale. Turned out to be nothing more than a rock and weed-filled drainage ditch that collected debris behind our municipal library. I mean, it was not pretty. It was ugly from the get-go. Like I said, they called it a bioswale, but it was a weed-filled ditch that collected debris. So that has always concerned me.
Sure. Mr. McKay?
I think we've come a long way since then, and I'm sure Mr. Kraus and Ms. Hogan, if she were here too, would tell you that we're being very intentional on all of the species of things that we're planning to make sure that it does look nice, right? It doesn't just look like, you're out in the country and things are, it's still designed to look natural, but it's not going to be like the bioswale that you described behind the library. So,
and forgive me because I think I misspoke. I believe it was actually filled with, as they referred to it, native plants.
Weeds.
But, Yes, that's what it appeared to be.
So in some of this language, I think we need to also have some enforceability. That if somebody is putting a bioswale in and is doing nothing but collecting candy wrappers and plastic cups or styrofoam cups,
Serious litter and debris.
there needs to be some sort of mechanism in there that people are responsible for the maintenance and aesthetic presentation of their bioswale or anything of that nature.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think that, as we were kind of getting into that discussion regarding a green wall and, having a thorough and intentional maintenance plan as it pertains to any form of green infrastructure, I think is essential to the implementation of this type of infrastructure. So, I think that I'm definitely in agreement with that. Chair, may I continue?
Please.
Okay. And then also, moving on, so as I had mentioned, stormwater management is viewed as a concern, definitely here in East Point, as it pertains to flooding, and then also to mitigating pollution, that runs off from the surfaces of, say, gas stations. It can be pretty detrimental to the water quality. That eventually does flow into our combined sewer system, and whether or not the facility that's receiving this stormwater is able to possess the capacity to be able to manage that volume. Oftentimes it's not the case, and so the fact that Lake St. Clair, and we're in close proximity to Lake St. Clair, we have to take into account the vulnerability of our freshwater bodies that are surrounding us here. So I think that that's an important thing to emphasize as we're exploring permeable surface improvements to new development projects. And then also, having kind of just building on what was in the existing zoning ordinance, making sure that we stress the importance of diversifying species as they are being selected, and so mandating that no single plant species should constitute more than 33% of total plantings to promote biodiversity and ecological balance. That is something that I see as a realistic requirement, and something that I don't see as amounting to a lot of pushback in having that included in this zoning ordinance article. And then also, protecting trees during construction. There really wasn't anything in the article that stressed the importance of preserving existing green infrastructure during construction processes, and the fact that, 9 Mile is under significant construction. I regularly it's regularly brought to my attention, trees being cut down rather than having a safety buffer around, mature trees. I think that it's important to take into account the value of preserving what exists rather than saying, having kind of looking to the future of, we'll just, plant one as, a justifiable response to something that is, quite damaging to, our mature green infrastructure. So getting to also, the payment in lieu of tree planting, I think that is essential to include in this article as well. But expanding the waiver options to accommodate for more stormwater control measures, I think is important. And then outlining the various alternatives that obviously can be at the discretion of the Planning Commission and our planning team here to determine what alternative options may be the most viable and realistic for every unique development situation that comes across your table. So and then also parking lot landscaping was, kind of building off of what we had talked about in the previous article, having, like I said, the alternative green infrastructure features such as permeable pavers, rain gardens, and bioswales as a substitute to the number of trees in landscaped areas with no less than 1 tree and 150 square feet of landscaped area for every 20 parking spaces. It does say 10 in here, but this, I think, is something that should be up for discussion, because obviously parking lots that accommodate for 20 vehicles isn't as consistent throughout the city, and so I think that it's important to obviously be empathetic to smaller development projects that may be 10 parking spaces, and in certain situations 150 square feet of a landscaped area may not necessarily be a realistic approach to that development project. So yeah, I would welcome some discussion regarding that on how we feel it would be best suited to approach that moving forward. That's it for me.
Anybody have anything for Mr. Kraus? I'm sensing no. Moving on.
Okay, thank you. Article 12, the city attorney and I worked on this to clarify the approval expiration, the site plan approval expiration. So we clarified language that a site plan will expire within 12 months if the applicant has not obtained a building permit, construction has not commenced, and an extension has not been requested within 12 months. So we added the provision that an extension has not been requested within 12 months.
So let me ask you a question. What is the city mechanism? If I get a site plan and I've not done anything with it, does anybody from the city contact me and say, hey, you're 3 months into your site plan, where are you at? Is there any mechanism like that, or is it like on the 11th month, at the last day of the month, before I'm expiring, somebody's gonna call me and say, oh, hey, how's the building going?
Oh, Chair. So your planning department is also their community and economic development developers. So we support businesses as much as we can. And that being said, we give warnings, 3-month warning, 6-month warning, and then month before warnings.
All right, but instead of using the word warning, how about you just say, you got this, you're 3 months in, what can we do, how's it going? As opposed to being the ominous threat above.
Sure, so colloquially, I use warning within this, but my demeanor at the counter and when I speak with businesses or proposed businesses is always friendly and warm, and I let them know in a positive way that their building plan will expire within whatever amount of months. Feel free to come and visit us. Love to see you.
Okay.
I do not know she's Miss Sunshine.
Little Miss Sunshine.
All right, on that, we are on Article 18. So we're going to see more conversation about this. I alluded to the Article 18 changes in the March meeting. So we're going to see more when staff dives in to clean up the city's general code of ordinances and as regulations pertain to businesses. But right now we did a simple cleanup, and we've differentiated between mobile vending and mobile food vending, because mobile vending could contain uses that are not just food, and we've added language that either a temporary use permit or a business license is required for these operations. And then moving on to the glossary, we added all of the great terms that our Community Economic Development Fellow Cross and Zoning Administrator Wolf presented, and a couple other things that I presented too, but you can see all this green infrastructure definitions. That's it. Any comments?
I do. Well, actually, kind of like a question comment. The mobile vending and mobile food vending, where they have to have the licenses, I'm going to refer to one at a gas station that's been permanent, that, Chairman Lubeck has mentioned before, but it now has rope lighting on it.
Definitely something you wouldn't want to put on a temporary structure.
I actually believe there's one at the BP station.
That's what I'm talking about.
No, the BP at 10 and 94 too. I think it's a corn belt or something. There's something there.
Chair,
Please.
I'm happy we're discussing this because I keep forgetting to bring it up as a training opportunity, but these are string lights. So we allow these. These are market, what are those called? Cafe lights?
Those are fine. Those aren't rope lights.
Yes, okay, so we are all on the same understanding about what rope lights are.
I guess it would also depend on where they are used. I mean, if they are strung across a dining area or something like that, seems like they would be permissible. But let's face it, businesses are gonna take those and say, oh, those are allowed. Well, I'm gonna put those around my window.
It's too big.
Let them do it though. At least they wouldn't be violating.
That's not the use of this. It's too many outdoors.
Can we move on, or?
Yeah.
Okay. So we need a motion to to consider approval of the zoning ordinance updates.
Do we actually want to do that tonight, seeing as one of our key masterminds in some of this stuff?
Well,
Some very unique questions that always come up, isn't with us?
well, in the interest of full disclosure, I did also email Mr. Grohl and say that if there was anything that he wished to add for this evening, please to let me know. I did not get a response from Mr. Grohl. Yeah, these are pretty, I can't see Mike having an issue with these. But I did give him the option, I did email, so.
All right,
So, do we have a motion to recommend approval to City Council of the zoning ordinance updates?
Motion to have the city council review the zoning and review the ordinance updates recommended to the city council.
With the additional changes that we
With
mentioned?
additional changes that we made pertaining to city planning, ability to do waivers if necessary.
We have motion, do we have support?
Support.
We have motion and support, Secretary, please call the roll.
Ms. Naylor?
Yes.
Ms. Zelinski, yes. Mr. Stokes?
Yes.
Mr. Lubeck?
yes.
Chairman DeHunt?
Yes. We have no unfinished business, so we will move on to the second hearing of the public. Does anybody wish to be heard? We gotta take her.
Gotta take her.
Let the night pass.
And there's no paper. He might have took it.
Just pretend to write your name down, Mr. Martin.
Okay, Gary Myron, East Point resident. Commissioners, Mr. McCain, Kelly Road, I'm for it, 100%. My thing is, the traffic lights are being changed. Should all that be on hold? Because all that's going to be changed, and all that money that's going to the traffic lights are all going to be wasted. That's my thought at the moment, is maybe put that on hold. Thanks.
Does anyone else wish to be heard? I think Ms. Lubeck is busy finishing her Afghan after hearing us all night long.
It's almost done.
Any longer and she might end up using it.
Seeing no more comments, we will close the second hearing of the public, and we will move on to training. The blood just rushed from my face.
No, this is great. Come on, we love training.
All right, you got, we want to be done by 9:30, when that includes all comments after, so.
All right, well, good thing the
Let's wind it up.
video is only 2 minutes. So,
There we go.
the training today is on green infrastructure, and I thought we might want to demystify what that means, because sometimes we hear about your bioswales and your rain gardens, and I'm like, is that all the same thing? I really do think they are all the same thing. So, that being said, let's hear this professional video on, drains and water infrastructure. However,
I just want you to know, I've used a rain barrel for many, many years.
Against the rules?
I did not know there was a rule, and I've had 2 of them. I save on my water bill.
You're a rebel. No.
oh, click share. Am I supposed to play it on there, or am I supposed to play it from my computer?
It's not just separate people.
What? I only have 2 options. Do you want to turn it on? I can just sign here. Here. I'll send those. Sorry. Yeah, not okay. I can get my speakers.
Do you want me to find a kindergartner for you?
What does that mean?
Seems like little kids can do technology far better than,
Oh, I'm insulted.
hey, I would find a kindergartner to help me too, so.
Let me know if you can hear this, okay?
Because of how Boston is built,
Okay.
storms have
Yeah.
different effects than in the suburbs and rural areas.
Alright, let's
Because of how
popcorn.
Boston is built, storms have different effects than in the suburbs and rural areas. Cities have lots of hard surfaces, like roads, roofs, driveways, and sidewalks. When rain falls on hard surfaces, it can't absorb into the ground. So, it travels across the surface. This is called stormwater. As stormwater moves across hard surfaces, it picks up pollutants and litter. Catch basins in our roadways capture stormwater and carry it through a network of underground pipes called storm drains. Storm drains then release stormwater and pollutants into our streams, rivers, and the harbor. This damages our ecosystem and prevents recreational use. To help solve this problem, the City of Boston is building green infrastructure. Green infrastructure works to mimic the natural water cycle. Plants, soil, and other natural materials absorb water and remove pollutants before stormwater reaches our water bodies. Green infrastructure has many other benefits. It creates new green space, cools our neighborhoods, improves air quality, and reduces flooding. Green infrastructure comes in many shapes and sizes. Rain barrels capture stormwater from the downspouts on our homes. Green roofs, like Fenway Farms, transform asphalt roofs and catch water for garden beds that grow food. Bioswales in parking lots, like at the Sumner Upper School, slow down and clean stormwater. Plants and trees provide shade, cool asphalt, and prevent puddling. And porous paving materials, like the permeable pavers in Central Square, allow stormwater to pass through the surface, water tree roots, and absorb into the ground. For more information, visit boston.gov/green-infrastructure.
You know, it was interesting, I was in Pittsburgh for the last week, and there was a section of 376 they call the bathtub, because it chronically floods. And 1975 too. But I found it sad and ironic at the same time that they literally call it a bathtub. And these are meteorologists and the road people on the news. It's like, you think if it's a bathtub, you'd fix the problem.
Well, Heinz Drive, it isn't a problem with the road, it's if they put a road in a floodplain. The majority of the time when it's dry, you have a nice usable park, and when it needs to do what it's supposed to do, it does.
And flocks, the permanent puddle when it rains. So, anything else?
Yeah, so you also had an article associated with this video. The article introduces a new topic that we haven't really discussed before, but that's gray infrastructure, which is different from green infrastructure. Gray infrastructure is the traditional storm gutter systems that you use, that you see. What is the, do you have any other terminology?
Yeah, typically hardscapes as well, they're impenetrable, and so I think that gray infrastructure oftentimes coincides with the surfaces that aren't permeable, and then also just the built infrastructure that is underneath that we don't necessarily see, but it's definitely being impacted, so those oftentimes go hand in hand.
And this article just gives us a description of the different tools available for us to help control flooding and to clean our water systems. And that is green infrastructure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to commissioner comments. We shall start with Ms. Brzezowski.
Nothing today, thank you.
Mr. McCain.
Try to be as brief as I possibly can. Sorry. So, as I believe you're all, aware, we're in the process of updating our joint 5-year Parks and Recreation Master Plan with Roseville and Rare. The meetings so far for that have been going well, but I would encourage all of you, as well as any members of the public that are here at home, to engage with the boards that we have here at East Point City Hall, Roseville City Hall, and the Rare Building to share your thoughts and ideas on what you'd like to see added or improved at our 8 parks in East Point and our 8 parks in Roseville. We recently submitted in a similar vein, we recently submitted 3 DNR grants for improvements at Spindler, Shamrock, and Kennedy Park, including some funding that we already got to put a splash pad at Kennedy, so keep your fingers crossed, knock on wood, for those. And have a number of other projects and things in the works. I also just wanted to mention from a community perspective that East Point Community Schools is in the process of going through a facilities master plan update. So if you are interested, you can go onto their website. There's 5 different proposals and they have 2 engagement opportunities coming up. The first one is on 4/19 at 4 p.m. at East Point Middle School, 4/17 from 4 to 6 p.m. at East Point Middle School, and the second one is a virtual option on the 19th from 12 to 1:30 p.m. I don't believe they've shared that link yet, but should be available soon. And last but certainly not least, I just wanted to say a great job to our CDM fellow and our planners at McKenna for the zoning ordinance updates they presented. Thank you and have a good night.
Mr. Krause.
Nothing else from me, Chair.
Mr. Albright.
Mr. Chair, thank you. No further comments.
Ms. Ulinsky.
Happy opening day, Eve.
Go Tigers.
It is. It's a holiday. Take it off if you work at City Hall. I just want to say thank you, as always, for your hard work and for the knowledge that you bestow upon me. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Mr. Stokes.
Thank you all. It was a good meeting, and that's all. No other comments.
Ms. David.
This was a good meeting. Thank you guys for having the zoning piece reflects the necessary needs of green infrastructure. We definitely overlook that. Revamping of the zoning and even the inclusivity of the EV movement we're going. It's just great to be forward thinking and making sure we're staying caught up as a RRC community. Other than that, I think we had a good meeting today. Thank you.
Mr. Luba.
Let's go Tigers! I want to thank Ms. Brzezowski, Mr. McKean, and Mr. Kraus for all your efforts today, and for the extra effort this evening from Mr. McKean and Mr. Kraus. Thank you so much. I can't tell you how much it is appreciated.
That's it?
Chair, can I add something? I'm sorry. I also want to congratulate our Community Economic Development Fellow, Mr. Kraus, and all of his hard work in putting this together and leading the charge for green infrastructure, and also our zoning administrator, Wolf. Just want to put that on record. Thank you.
Two bites of the apple tonight. That's it, Mr. Lubeck?
Yes.
Okay.
This is to make you want to come back more, sorry, John. So we can keep giving you all this kudos because, gotta keep you moving.
Everyone's taking two bites of the apple tonight. Welcome back, Mr. Lubeck. You were missed for 3 months. Good luck with getting a diagnosis. How about we start with that? I will not be in attendance in May because this is my twice-a-year board meeting that I have to go to.
Oh, so I've got to be here.
Yeah, pretty much. But it's an important group of people for me, and I believe in taking care of people in my industry and their families, and this is an organization that does just that. And I think that will be my message for the evening is we need to stop thinking selfishly and think of people outside of the box. Having said that, it is 9:25. Can I get a motion to close the meeting?
So moved.
We have motion, do we have support? We have motion and support. Secretary, please call the roll.
Mr. Lubeck?
Yes.
Ms. Julinski, yes. Mr. Stokes?
Yes.
Ms. Naylor?
Yes.
Chairman DeHaan?
Yes.